Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 58 of the report. Yeah, man. It's been about a week. Been about a week since the last time I talked to you guys, man. And of course, I'm gonna talk to you guys about quite a few things that have been going on over the course of the week, man. When we talk about Ferguson again, we're going to talk about New York again. We're going to talk about Eric Garner and Mike Brown again. We're going to talk about Bill Cosby. We're going to talk about a lot of those things again here on this episode of the Spann Report, man. And yeah, man, I noticed like a lot of these things have become a bit of recurring themes, and it's become something that has been sustained. Normally, you can kind of move through these stories and they'll kind of fade away into the background. Something else will pop off, and these things that kind of go into the background. No one really speaking on them again. But for the past couple months, man, this has been on the forefront of what people have been talking about. It's been on the forefront of people's minds, and so yeah, man, it's been on the forefront of my mind. And of course, I got some opinions about the things that are going on. So I feel like I can share those opinions with you guys here, man. But not only the whole thing of Ferguson and Mike Brown and New York and Eric Garner, even Cleveland and Tamir Rice. I want to talk about something, just some of my weekly observations, so to speak, just some things that have happened in the course of the last week, message observed over the course of the week, man. But before I get into all of that, before I start doing any of that, I got to let you guys know how you can get in touch with me here at the Spann Report podcast and let your voice be heard. Of course, you can always go to the Spann Report hotline and leave a voicemail, okay? And that number is area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. I'm pulling those messages up right now. So that I can, once I get this mixer, because I'm waiting for my mixer to show up, so that once I get this mixer, I can, do everything live here on the show. I really do want to plug these voicemails. I'm not holding you guys up. I'm not, ignoring the voicemails or the emails. I'm really trying to pull these things up and wait for my mixer to come so that I can get you guys the right way here on the Spann Report podcast, man. So that hotline number is, of course, 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages there. You can email the show at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Of course, I will read all of those messages here, and I will respond to those messages here on the website as well. And of course, you can always go to the website and get everything you need as far as the Spann Report is concerned. All of the videos, all of the podcasts, all of the guest appearances that I've made on other shows. You can go to thespannreport.com. That is your central hub for everything Spann Report related. And of course, chop it up with me on Twitter and on Instagram. And my name on both of those platforms, of course, is Mr._Spann. You can hit me up on those platforms and we can chop it up. I had some very interesting discussion with some folks on Twitter a little earlier this week when it came to discussing the non-indictment of Eric Garner, man. I had a really interesting discussion, although I don't think we came to any resolution. And a lot of the times these conversations become a bit circular in the fact that you're not going to convince the other side of whatever it is that you're thinking. And sometimes folks feel as if, they can, they have these compelling arguments. You know what? It's just not compelling enough for me to change my mind, and vice versa, but I had some very interesting discussions on Twitter about Eric Garner. One guy was talking to me about whether or not Eric Garner's health was the central reason in why Eric Garner died. His being a big man, him having asthma, and all of these things were more paramount to the fact that Eric Garner died, other than the fact that the chokehold that Officer Daniel Pantaleo put on Eric Garner, and basically trying to give this guy a way out. I wasn't buying it. I'm like, dude, you respectfully, I think you crazy as hell. But you know what? That's what it is. That's what it is, though. I can appreciate having some spirited and some passionate discussion at the same time, not necessarily delving into being disrespectful. And I really do embrace that. I want people to embrace that when they come here and they want to share some ideas and share and exchange some your thoughts on the things that we discuss here on the Spann Report, man. But yeah, man, before I get into all of the things that have everyone all up in arms this week, I'm gonna tell you guys about some things that happened to me this week, right? So as you know, as you guys know, or if you paid attention to me any length of time to know, I do normally carry a concealed weapon, right? And I do that legally, right? I don't do that, just on some. I'm going to I'm going to skirt the law. I'm going to just do anything illegally. I want to be right when I do these things. So I went to renew my gun license to carry concealed. And I got so many things, so many different things going on that I allowed my license to lapse. So it took a while for me to go ahead and reapply and try to get that license reinstated and everything else. So I haven't been carrying. And so of course, because of the fact that I was arrested in Chicago in 2011, when you go for your license, they do a background check on you, and they're going to find whether or not you've been arrested for anything or whether or not you've been convicted of anything. They're going to find that. So if you're going to apply, a message of note to anybody who's applying, if you've been arrested for any of these things, man, they're going to find it. All right. Trust and believe me, they're going to find it. Like, so I'm getting ahead of myself, but they're going to find that stuff if you've ever been arrested for anything concerning anything. I mean, like, yeah, they're going to find it. So, because I had been arrested, they denied my initial application for carrying a concealed weapon, right? So they denied that application, and if I wanted to appeal it, I'd have to go to the gun board. I had to go before the gun board, and I'd have to tell them exactly what happened with the case, where I was able to either get the charges dismissed or just basically the dispensation of the case. What happened with that case, and whether or not it would preclude you from being able to carry this weapon or get these licenses to carry this weapon. So I go to the gun board meeting, and they usually hold these once a month. And I go to the gun board meeting, and there's a lot of people there who have been denied their initial application has been denied, right? So the license, I'm there. It's a lot of people, and while you're there, you start hearing the reasons why folks' license applications were being denied. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting my turn. I'm waiting for my name to be called, and I'm listening to all these other folks go up and their names being called. And yeah, man, there's some crazy motherfuckers out here. There's some crazy people out here applying to get their concealed carry licenses, man. One of the most egregious things that I thought I saw while listening to folks who were appealing their denial was there was this one gentleman who had been incarcerated for, well, I know he had been incarcerated since 1984. He was just released last year for murder. All right. He was a convicted murderer, and he was applying for a concealed carry license. And I'm not sure if a lot of people know. I'm pretty sure most people would have this idea that if you're a convicted felon, that you won't be able to obtain a license for carrying a concealed weapon. I mean, a lot of times when you're a convicted felon, I think they take your right to vote away from you also. So there's a lot of different things that happen when it comes to being a convicted felon that precludes you or excludes you from a lot of different things. Carrying a concealed weapon is one of them. So why did you even bother? But he's probably one of those people who thought that, well, maybe I can get, maybe they're going to let this shit slide, that they won't catch this or whatever. But he went all the way to the point of appearing before the gun board to find out whether or not they were going to allow him to carry a concealed weapon after he just did over 20 years or just about 20 years in prison for murder, right? And then, of course, you had a lot of folks who were there who had like it was a couple older guys, man, who had been arrested for something like back in 1969. Another guy was there for something he did back in 1963. There was this old white guy in there. He he had been in there for drunk driving, carrying a concealed weapon. He had weed on him, And like all of these listed charges, and the charges were from like in Mississippi somewhere. And he was having trouble. He brought his lawyer and everything. He was having trouble finding the records to show that those charges had been disposed of, so to speak, but he couldn't find the proper paperwork, and the gun board denied him that license to carry. I think the guy's like 70 something years old now, but yeah, man, they were holding folks up for things like misdemeanor infractions from like 30 and 40 and 50 years ago. They were stopping you from automatically getting that gun license. You had to go before the gun board and explain what the hell happened in your case, and that was part of the reason why I was at the gun board meeting. I had to explain what happened. Basically those charges were dismissed, and that was it. And so they, once I presented them with the proper paperwork from the Cook County Circuit Court, they, went on ahead and they approved my license, and it should be here within a couple weeks. So I'm a bit excited about that, because I've been feeling a little naked walking around the streets, not exactly being strapped, man. So it's been a bit of adjustment just in my clothes, man. I got to start buying bigger clothes so that my gun will fit. Yeah, man. But yeah, that happened, right? So yeah, other than that, because it hasn't been a whole hell of a lot going on outside of like work for me. But this weekend, man, I went to the Shaq All-Star Comedy Jam here in Detroit, man, and it was an okay show. I say that because it was obvious to me that they were rushing through their sets. Like, there was 4 comics, I believe. There were 4 performers, and then there was a host. I think comedian Capone was the host, and then there was Dominique and Michael Blackston, Red Grange, and Gary Owens were the talent at the show. And it was a good show. I mean, it was an okay show. Like, I really did like Red Grange's set. I liked Capone's set. Gary Owens was the headliner, but again, I felt like his set was a bit rushed through. Like, he had to hurry up and finish through his jokes or whatever, because they scheduled 2 shows that night and the show got started late. So I kind of feel like those of us who went to that 8 o'clock show got a bit shortchanged because of the fact that, the shows got started late and they were rushing through their sets. And I think Dominique's set went a little bit longer than it should have. But yeah, man, it was a decent show. It was an okay show. One of the things that I always found in that I just didn't like, there's always those people that buy their tickets outside, or who buy their tickets through unscrupulous means. There was an instance where like some folks were having a dispute as to whose seat were whose, and the show was going on and they're standing up in front of me and shit, and I'm trying not to cuss motherfuckers out. It was just one of those things, man. Like, hey, look here, man, I don't know what's going on, but there's some open seats back here that y'all go sit y'all ass down until y'all figure this shit out. I paid for these seats. I paid to watch the show. I didn't pay to watch your motherfucking back, man. Straight up, man. But yeah, outside of that, man, that Shaq All-Star Comedy, it was okay. It was just okay. I honestly, I wasn't really it was just okay. I thought I was expecting a bit better show than that. But again, I like I said, I felt like they rushed through a lot of their sets because of the fact that, the show got started late. But it was something to do over the weekend, man. And, date night with the lady, man. So we went out there, we did that, and we went to dinner afterwards. And yeah, that was pretty much it, man. But one of the things, man, that was also going on this weekend, and I'm switching topics here to get to some of the more some of the more serious things that have been going on. One of the things that went on this weekend was the march in Washington for bringing awareness to police brutality, the recent killings that have resulted in 0 indictments when it comes to Mike Brown, and when it comes to Eric Garner. And, you think about what's going on in Cleveland, Ohio, with the killing of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. Just so many different things that are going on, man. And it was good to see that folks are really galvanizing this opportunity, or these issues. They're galvanizing, and they're putting themselves in motion to create a movement, to make it something more sustained than just a hashtag on Twitter or something on Facebook that you continue to talk about. That there are folks who are actively out there seeking to bring attention to and to eradicate the issues of police brutality, and to try to force those who don't want to listen to pay attention, because that's pretty much what a lot of these protests are about, is to get folks who wouldn't necessarily understand what's going on, or who wouldn't know what the hell is going on, get these people to understand that these things are affecting us in a way that you should be aware of, and I think it's a really good thing to see so many young people being involved in that, man. I'm so proud to see so many young people being involved and wanting to spearhead the movement and wanting to be out in front, and not necessarily taking cues from, the establishment, as far as, what's his name? Al Sharpton, like guys like that, who are lightning rods, who can bring attention, but sometimes can become part of the distraction in ways that the movement is being perceived and how it's being led and everything else. So yeah, it's good, man. It's good to see that movement taking place. And I so wanted to go to that. I was seriously considering going to that march on Washington, man. And in a way, I'm kind of regretting that I didn't go. I'm kind of regretting that I didn't go, man. I really did. I really did want to participate in that, but well, the thing of that though is there's more than one way to participate in the movement. There's more than one way to get the word out and to bring awareness to those who wouldn't necessarily find themselves privy to this type of information, or privy to these issues that are being brought to light, because so many people are now making it known that these type of things won't necessarily be tolerated. And so yeah, man, and not only that, man, here's another thing, man. I find myself having these discussions online, right? And again, I've tried to distance myself from these interactions, man, but there's always some idiot on any social media platform who's willing to engage you in some foolery. And sometimes I am, my need to eradicate bullshit sometimes gets the better of me, and I end up having discussions with folks that I probably shouldn't even give the time of day. But I was having discussions with folks on the internet, and we were talking about the NBA players who were coming out with where they were wearing the "I Can't Breathe" t-shirts, right? And again, I spoke about a lot of this over the last couple of episodes, where NFL players had come out. Who's that? The St. Louis Rams had come out before a game, and they had the hands up, don't shoot gesture. 5 players came out, and the St. Louis Police Association demanded an apology and fines and discipline be handed out to those players. They even went so far to say that the NFL actually did, or that the St. Louis Rams organization actually did apologize to them, and the Rams organization said, no, we didn't apologize to you. It was it was real petty shit between supposedly respectable organizations going on over social media or whatever, right? And so you had that shit going on. And then you have Derrick Rose being the first player in the NBA to come out with the "I Can't Breathe" t-shirt. And then you follow that up with LeBron James and Kevin Garnett and Darren Williams and a lot of different players on the I was going to say New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, while the king, well, not the king, but Prince William and his wife, Kate Middleton, were attending the game. And so there was a lot of people were upset. A lot of people are upset with these NBA players, these NFL players, for showing solidarity with these protesters, right? And it's interesting to see that. It's interesting to see or listen to folks be mad at those types of things, right? So say, for instance, the NFL, right? Every October, the NFL, they do Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? And you see NFL players, they have on pink. They have pink towels. They have pink shoes. They have, they have on, pink gloves and all of these things. They wear all these pink to accent the uniforms that they're wearing, right? And they do all these special PSAs and all of these things to bring awareness to breast cancer research, or to those who have lost members of their family to breast cancer. I personally have lost a member of my family to breast cancer. My mother lost her battle with breast cancer in 1997. So it's something that, I can identify with, and I appreciate the gesture. But at the same time, I can also look at that NFL, effort to bring awareness to breast cancer, and also look at it as a cash grab in a sense of, okay, now we can sell all of these pink things to these women, and we're going to make money off of this. So, they don't necessarily do it without, the cynic in me says that they wouldn't necessarily do it unless there was some type of financial incentive in place for them to do it, right? So you look at you look at that though. You look at the fact that the NFL regularly, they promote this cause, and it's a worthy cause, no doubt, right? And there's a universal acceptance of, hey, you know what? Breast cancer is a thing that affects all of us, or someone we know. I can get behind that. I can understand why they would want to bring attention to this, right? So it's interesting for me to see so many people upset when an athlete would bring attention to something that was close to them, right? Because we do know someone who lives in a neighborhood that isn't exactly the greatest neighborhood in the world. We do know people who have been affected by the police in some sort of way, or the circumstances in their neighborhood some sort of way. We do. Every black man that I know has had an issue with the police at some point in their life, right? So for an NFL player or an NBA player to go ahead and bring awareness to something that is close to them, and folks are finding issue with that, it's just interesting as hell to witness. It's interesting. It's interesting because it's one of those things where these people can't necessarily identify, and that's why they have an issue with it. This isn't something that you can point to and say, well, you know what, man, me and Tom, when we go out to the bar or whatever, I know that when I leave that bar, police are going to harass me. I know that when I leave that bar, chances are I'm going to get my ass kicked. Now, that's not to say that, black folks get their ass kicked every time they run into the cops or nothing like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there's an inherent fear in the black community, especially among black men, when it comes to the police department or when it comes to their interactions with the cops, that they have this fear that it isn't going to end well for them, right? I can't tell you how many times my asshole done puckered up into like an asshole duck face because of the cops flashing their lights behind me like, oh shit, I got to deal with this again, right? So, it's one of those things to where we know, like, they can't necessarily identify. They don't know anybody who's dealt with this issue. And because you bring it to their face now and something that they feel like is an escape from reality. A lot of people think that, watching sports is something to escape them from their reality, when, sometimes sports and social issues can, blur the lines between the two. When you think about Muhammad Ali and his decision not to participate in the Vietnam War, when you think about the Black Power movement and the Olympians, I hate that I can't even think of their names right now, when they put up the Black Power salute during the Olympics, and what that meant for them and their careers, and how they were viewed historically. Just so many different things, man, that have happened that have intersected sports and that have intersected sports and social issues. So it's interesting to see so many people be so up in arms about black players identifying with an issue that affects their community and being upset about it. Like, people were really, really, really upset about it. And another thing, like the police association in St. Louis was asking for an apology from the St. Louis Rams and from the St. Louis Rams players. They were asking for fines, maybe even suspensions of those players, and that had that gesture going on. And then take, for instance, what happened in New York, right? In New York, you have the mayor basically telling, after the non-indictment of Daniel Pantaleo come down, to say that, that things really do need to change in the NYPD, that, he's had discussions with his son on how to interact with the police. And, it's one of these things that, like, we have to coach our kids. Like, okay, when you deal with the police, there's a certain way that you're to conduct yourself, right? And I've said this many a times, man. I've said this, like, when as a black man, I know that there's a certain, like, there's a certain protocol in place to try to keep me from getting my ass whooped when I'm dealing with the police, man, right? Chris Rock did a whole skit on how to not get your ass whooped by the cops years ago. So this isn't exactly like a story or anything new. People tell their kids, especially folks in places of color or families with men of color, yeah, if you want to survive this interaction with the police, man, just do whatever motherfucking thing he says, man. Be respectful, answer the questions, man. Just try to hurry up and get through this shit, because you don't want to upset this motherfucker, and you don't want to end up going to jail. You don't want to end up being beat up. You don't want to end up being shot. So there are certain aspects of how you interact with the cops. And so Mayor de Blasio, who's married to a black woman, who has biracial children, has spoken openly about this discussions that he's had with his son on how to interact with the police. And do you know the police association in New York are now like trying to get other officers to sign a petition to keep him and the state of the Speaker of the House in New York City Council. I don't necessarily know how that city government works, but they're asking for the mayor and the Speaker of their house to not attend any of their funerals should they die in the line of duty. That if they were invited to these funerals, that they would be disrespectful to their memories because they feel as if the mayor threw them under the bus when it came to speaking on this issue. I don't understand. I really don't get how tone deaf one has to be. How tone deaf one has to be to think that the mayor is throwing your organization under the bus because he's acknowledging a very real problem when it comes to the police and their relationship with the community in which they're patrolling. And it speaks to why there is a divide in how the community views the police and how the police views the community, where you look at a situation like that and you feel like the mayor threw you under the bus because one of you, right? Because it isn't all cops, right? One cop, five in this particular instance, where we see what happened to Eric Garner, but the one the one officer who applied that chokehold got away essentially with murder on tape. Everybody saw him commit this murder and he walks away scot-free from it, right? So one cop out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of you performs an illegal or a banned chokehold. A man dies because of it, and the mayor speaks on the things that need to be done in the community to mend the fences between the police and the community. And the police association feels as if they're being thrown under the bus because of the actions of this one individual. Instead of saying, you know what? This one dude is costing us a whole hell of a lot of grief that we didn't necessarily have to be going through if he'd have done shit the right way. And as a token of conciliatory effort, I don't know, as a token as a peace offering, you know what? We understand why the community is upset, and we don't condone what that officer did in that particular moment. And you work yourself back from there. You start making efforts to, with the community to improve relations with the community. You don't, exacerbate these conditions by, telling the mayor, no, if I die, don't come to my motherfucking funeral because you're gonna throw all of us under the bus with this bullshit. When you know that the community, everybody's watching now. That's why it's so funny to me that these police unions or these police organizations are finding themselves so tone deaf. Where even the St. Louis Police Association found the need to speak on what happened in Cleveland with Tamir Rice and talk about whether or not kids should have toy guns and how to approach an officer with toy guns. Like, dog, y'all got enough problems in St. Louis to be talking about some shit that's going on in Cleveland. Y'all got way too many issues going on down there. I think y'all should start, sweeping out in front of your own porch. Clean up your own house before you start talking about what's going on down the street. So yeah, man, like these police organizations, man, they're fucking tone deaf. They don't really know, how to present themselves to the community in which they're policing, man. And things are getting bad when it comes to the conditions or when it comes to the relationship between the police and the communities in which they're supposedly protecting, and serving, right? Just a second. Let me take a swig of this here. I done made some shit up, man. I got some what's this? Some Crown Royal apple with some V8 splash, strawberry, banana juice with a little splash of what's that? Mountain Dew Cold Red. Yeah, and it's good too. Yeah. So yeah, man, like these police organizations, man, they're really tone deaf. And one would think, or one would hope that they would, kind of get like maybe a PR firm to help them get their shit together, because they honestly aren't endearing themselves to the communities that they're policing or protecting and serving, man. But switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about Cosby again. All right. And, oh shit. One thing about this, man, and it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me, seeing how like those of us in the Black community, how some of us are viewing what's going on with Bill Cosby, right? Now, as it stands right now, Bill Cosby is accused of either drugging or raping 26 women. 26 women have come forward to say that Bill Cosby has either drugged or raped them, right? And a lot of folks in the community feel as if it's a conspiracy, that they're coming out to get Bill Cosby, that and that's the thing. I don't get I don't get it. And maybe like after this podcast, or maybe, some of you guys may write in or call in or whatever and let me know what you're thinking about this, where this conspiracy comes from, because I see quite a few folks sometimes are talking about, whether or not they think Bill Cosby did these things, right? Or whether or not Bill Cosby is being set up. Okay. So you look at the fact that, a lot of like the gist of the conspiracies that I've seen have been that Bill Cosby was, one of the most powerful Black people in entertainment. He once tried to buy NBC all by himself. And that Bill Cosby was on the verge of a comeback. He had the special on Netflix. He had another I think he had a show coming out on Netflix, or a series coming out on one of the networks. I believe it might have been NBC. Excuse me. One of the two. I don't know. Right. But the conspiracy is like, folks are really trying to go after Bill Cosby. Like, they're trying to take this man down a peg. And that those who are into the conspiracy are looking at other Black folks who think Bill Cosby did that shit. Like, they look at it as if, well, you're only happy that they're coming after Bill Cosby because Bill Cosby was telling folks how to act. Bill Cosby went on the whole, the respectability politics train, when you go talking about how Black people talk to one another, how Black people dress, how Black people act, how Black people, spend their money, basically coming down a lot on poor Black individuals, not necessarily acknowledging the systematic racism and the systematic conditions that, kind of produce a lot of that and keep a lot of those people in those places, not really acknowledging that. But be that as it may, Bill Cosby is accused of sexually abusing and or drugging 26 women, right? Then you add to the fact that most of the women who came forward were all white women. The most famous up to a point was, I believe, Janice Dickinson. And so people went to talking about Janice Dickinson, about how crazy Janice Dickinson is, and how Janice Dickinson is known to lie, and all of these things. And then you start seeing people talk about, well, why did these women wait all these years to come out? Why did they wait? This supposedly happened in 1969. This happened in 1982. Like, why does women wait this long? And the question never really, I have yet to see anybody say, well, goddamn, why is Bill Cosby so fucking rapey? If rapey is even a word. Like, nobody is trying to hold this man accountable for the situations in which he's put himself in. And it goes to like a lot of the things where we talk about People having issues with women. There's a lot of slut shaming that goes on when you talk about rape victims, and especially when you talk about whether or not why these women wait years and years to come forward, man. There's a few different reasons for that, man. For one, a lot of women probably, they believe that no one will believe them. And you look at what's going on right now when it comes to the 26, it's 26 women at this point, and you still have people saying, "No, that bullshit didn't happen." So people don't believe, these women don't believe that people will believe them, right? Secondly, it's Bill Cosby, right? It's Bill Cosby. Who's going to believe that Bill Cosby had to take it? These are some of the things that that'll come up, and folks still don't believe that Bill Cosby would ever have to do any of these things, right? And so there's another aspect of these women not necessarily knowing whether or not they were the only one. So, if you believe that, this happened to you and it was an isolated incident and this is a person of influence and you speak up, you believe that you might be the only one, like, it takes the courage of only one to come out, and then you start finding out that this happened more than once. And usually when somebody is engaged in this type of activity, they've done it more than one time. They may have started somewhere, but they've done it more than once. So, once this ball starts rolling where women start coming out, it's like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And, like, I don't necessarily begrudge these women for waiting all this time to come forth, because again, I understand that, like, a lot of times folks simply won't believe you. They simply won't believe you, and they'll question your motives, right? They'll question your motives. Now, I'll tell you a small bit of an example of something that happened with me. Now, it doesn't have to do with rape or anything like that, but just a little bit of a story of what happened with me, where I can tell you why I understand a bit why sometimes someone would be a little bit reluctant, right? I had an issue with my father, right? I had an issue with my father, and my father was a singer. My father was Floyd Taylor, son of Johnny Taylor. My father was a singer is himself, right? So me and my father had an issue, or like a personal issue. And one way that I felt to get my father's attention, to see, to be able to tell him what I needed to tell him, was to go on YouTube and blast them on YouTube, right? Now, a lot of people would say, why the fuck would you do that? Why didn't you keep that in-house, right? It wasn't even about everybody else or who saw that and everything. I wanted him to see it. And that was like the one way I knew that he couldn't really deny, or he couldn't, not see that, because word was going to get back to him that he was going to see what the fuck I had to say. And that's what that whole thing was about, right? But by telling him what I needed to tell him in such a public way, allowed all of these other folks to start putting in their 2 cents, right? So they started thinking that I really wanted something from my father. Like, they thought I wanted money. I've heard that I wanted a reality show. I wanted to, all these, like, I was really like, a reality show, money. Like, nah, I honestly just wanted a phone number. That was it. I wanted phone numbers for my sisters. That was it, right? And so, like, I started seeing people, accusing me of trying to extort my father, when really all I wanted from him was a phone number to talk to and meet my sisters, right? So you have these issues, man, when you're dealing with people of some sort of notoriety, like my father who had a little bit of notoriety, and you think of someone on Bill Cosby's level who has a ton of notoriety, and folks are throwing daggers at you for simply speaking out. People are throwing daggers at you for speaking out on what you think is an issue, or you have an issue, or you have a problem with this individual, right? So I can understand why someone would be a bit reluctant to speak on an issue and come forth publicly about some of the things that have happened between them and a person of note, so to speak. So you have that whole thing going on, right? And so Beverly Johnson comes forth, right? Beverly Johnson is the 26th woman, the 26th person to come forth to say, hey, Bill Cosby drugged me. Bill Cosby did this to me. Bill Cosby took advantage of me in a way in which he shouldn't have. Bill Cosby made my career or used the carrot of, I can help your career, to do these things to me. Right. And so I'm looking at people I'm looking at some of my friends. I'm looking at some, just random people on the internet, man. All these people are making so many different crazy accusations, excuse me, against these women. Like these women, they're dried up, they're hoes. These women are looking for a monetary payout. I know Gloria Allred has gotten involved with this situation with a few of those women, and we're asking for a $200 million settlement or some shit like that. So I can understand where that act, that thought process would take place. I can understand that, but at the end of the day, excuse me, I'm sorry. Got a bit of a cold coming down, I guess. But at the end of the day, what really boils down to is a lot of these people really do have issues with women. They really do. I mean, at what point do we hold anyone responsible? Or at what point do we hold Bill Cosby responsible again for putting himself in those situations, right? To even be accused of drugging a chick or having sex with a woman who couldn't give consent. At what point do we draw the line to say that type of shit ain't cool, right? So if it's a regular cat on the block who's accused of drugging chicks in the neighborhood and everybody's telling you to stay the fuck away from him, and he's raped a few chicks, hell, he can only do that shit once or twice before motherfuckers is like, hey man, no dog, like people are ready to get this nigga out of the neighborhood, right? Ain't nobody trying to fuck with him. Ain't nobody trying to have him in the neighborhood. Everybody like, yo, man, stay the fuck away from me. Or stay the fuck away from my kids. Stay the fuck away from my daughter. Stay the fuck away from my wife, or I'm going to kill you. But because it's Bill Cosby, or because it's Cliff Huxtable, because a lot of this has, to do with folks' associations with the fact that they can't necessarily separate Bill Cosby from Cliff Huxtable. That they just can't seem to reconcile the fact that these people, that Cliff Huxtable was a character and he wasn't real, and he isn't your dad. He isn't America's dad. He's a fictional character portrayed by Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby, the man, could very well be this druggy, rapey type dude that 26 women have come forth to address him as. Right? And so going back to the whole thing of the conspiracy aspect, where folks are thinking this is a conspiracy to get Bill Cosby, that these women have all conspired to tear down Bill Cosby's legacy and to monetize off of what's going on with Bill Cosby. My question to all of those who believe this conspiracy is this: if they were going to do this, if this is going to be a vast conspiracy to take down Bill Cosby, why wouldn't they do it during a time where Bill Cosby was at his most influential? When Bill Cosby was doing the Cosby Show, when Bill Cosby was going through his attempt to buy NBC, when Bill Cosby was doing or producing A Different World, right? Why wouldn't you do that when he was at his most influential? Why would you wait till you have this 77-year-old dude who nobody was really like paying attention to Bill Cosby in any major way? He had this whole thing with Netflix that was going to come out. Yeah, that's cool. It's one of the many things that Netflix is going to have come out. Yeah, have a network. I believe it was NBC. He was doing another special on NBC. Yeah, another show. Not to the point where everybody was like dropping everything everything they were doing to check out what the hell Bill Cosby was doing. People respected him as an old, as a pioneer in the in the comedy game. People respected him in that way, especially in comedic circles. But as far as the mainstream was concerned, a lot of folks, they have a nostalgic place for Bill Cosby, and it's cool to have that nostalgic place for Bill Cosby. But in the present day, Bill Cosby didn't have as much sway, and he lost a lot of that sway when it came to his respectability politics parade a few years ago. Now, again, a lot of folks would say that that's probably why so many black folks are accepting of these allegations of Bill Cosby. I'm like, honestly, I kind of look at them as if they're independent of each other. I look at them as if they're independent of each other. And even if I did want to link the two together, my only retort would be to keep your shit clean. If you're gonna talk about all of these things that black people should be doing, if you're going to rail against, the fact that you can't stand black people with, the pants sagging, which, honestly, I kind of think it's a little asinine too, but I didn't go on the motherfucking parade around the country to say, you know what, go pull your fucking pants up and everything else. No, if you feel this way about these people, if you want to distance yourself away from these people, honestly, don't look for these people to like really go to bat for you when you've been talking shit to them, you've been talking down to them all these years, right? So when it comes to Bill Cosby, honestly, I'm to the point now where like because of the way that we view social, or not just social media, but the way in which we view celebrity, the way that social media has given us access to a lot of these celebrities, that I'm of the mindset that it's more than likely that Bill Cosby probably did that shit. You know, the same way that I would say R. Kelly did that shit. The same way that I would say Eric Garner is dead because Daniel Pantaleo choked him out. The same way that I would say Darren Wilson shot Mike Brown 150 feet away from him while saying that he was in fear for his life. The same way that we get all of our news, right? That you can filter through what you believe is true and what you believe isn't. But when it comes to celebrity and when it comes to social media, because we have so much access, you can kind of, pull the shroud away of, someone being, a bit bigger or a step above everyone else. You can kind of chip away at that, and you start seeing the way that these people think, the way that these people act, and you start seeing like, you know what, this motherfucker's an asshole. I don't know if I really like this motherfucker no more. I mean, that's kind of like how I feel about Michael Jordan now. I mean, I was the biggest Jordan fan that I knew. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, I was a real big Michael Jordan fan. I'm reading this book right now, The Life by Roland Lazenby. Reading that book now, and I just in reading that book and like seeing the way that Michael Jordan acted during that his Hall of Fame induction speech. Like you start finding out like this. There was a carefully crafted image built up for Michael Jordan through his commercial endeavors and everything else, but the person was kind of an asshole, a bit of a dick. So, this whole association with thinking that Bill Cosby couldn't be capable of these things, I don't ascribe to that belief. I don't believe that there's some vast conspiracy going on to bring down 77-year-old Bill Cosby in his twilight years when nobody's really checking for him like that. And so for those of you who feel as if Bill Cosby is getting a raw deal, or for those of you who feel that I'm being unfair, or for those of you who feel like the conspiracy has some legitimacy, I mean, shit, you're more than welcome to tell me. You're more than welcome to hit me up on the hotline. You're more than welcome to hit me up on the email or whatever. Leave some comments in the YouTube channel. You're more than welcome to do all of those things, man. But for my stance here at the Spann Report, nah, man, I think he did it. I think Bill Cosby is a rapey motherfucker. So yeah, man, that's it, man. That's how I feel about it. And that's what it is. That's what it is, man. But yeah, that's it. That's today's show, man. I got to get out of here. But before I get out of here, I got to let you guys know how you can hit me up here at the Spann Report podcast. And of course, let your voice be heard. You can hit me up at the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Hit me up on that hotline. Leave those voicemail messages. I will play those voicemail messages here on the show, and of course respond to you here on the show as well. You can also send me an email at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. That is the new official email of the show. Send me those emails, and of course I will read those and reply to those here as well. You can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So we could chop it up there. We can have some of those discussions like I had earlier this week with that guy who was trying to tell me that Eric Garner died because of asthma, not that Daniel Pantaleo chokehold. Yeah, so we can chop it up on both of those platforms. And you can, of course, go to thespannreport.com and get everything Spann Report related, all of the Spann TV videos, and more recently, all the Spann podcast episodes are available in video form as well as in podcast form on thespannreport.com. Go to thespannreport.com, get everything you need there as far as podcasts when it comes to the videos, guest appearances, all of that stuff. Go to thespannreport.com and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're thinking. But yeah, I got to get out of here, y'all. I got to get out of here. Watch my Lions. I think it was halftime when I started this. I don't know if my boys are winning right now, but I got to finish watching that game, man. But until next time, fam. Peace.